I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up politics. Trump revives transgender for all claim in rant targeting queer people, immigrants, and Democrats. In a speech advertised as an economic address, President Trump veered sharply into anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, claiming Democrats want to turn, quote, every member of your family, end quote, transgender.
I think transgender for all is a great, great thing for the Democrats to be talking about. Transgender for every member in your family. If they're not feeling well that night, let's just change their sex. Now, let's not talk about it. Let them go and let them fight to get these things.
He repeated his long-used phrase, transgender for all, presenting it as a Democratic position despite no evidence that Democrats support forced transitioning. Advocates note that liberals view trans people as a small, historically marginalized community needing legal protection. Trump, however, had made attacking transgender rights a centerpiece of his 2024 campaign, spending heavily on anti-trans messaging, even as the Harris campaign remained largely quiet on the issue. Trump also escalated racist and misogynistic attacks against Representative Ilhan Omar, calling her a bitch, mocking her attire, and prompting chants of "send her back" from the crowd. He additionally admitted that he referred to Haiti and African nations as, quote, shithole countries, end quote, in 2018. Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta responded to his hateful speech saying, quote, I already knew Donald Trump was a liar and corrupt and incompetent, end quote. Well, that's our president. That's our leader.
Oh boy.
I can't say that the world must be laughing at our leadership in our country right now.
It's been a running joke for decades.
It has been. But, you know, I lost all respect for him. You know, he's, if I ever had any, but that he's not a leader. He doesn't represent the people. The hatred that he's propagating is just totally so anti-American from what our country really was founded on, you know, for freedom for everyone. And you look again, and it's been said many times, you know, in the U.S., transgender population is estimated to be less than 1% of the population. And the figures that I got, although I saw some variables, was that globally, you know, probably, you know, less than maybe 3 million. So you have to look at, here we have somebody who probably was, depending on what circles you look at, a very successful business person in spite of his bankruptcies and felonies. But, you know, he has no business to be in politics.
No, and let's face it, the trans people is just a new scapegoat. They can't go after the entire LGBTQ plus community anymore, at least not blatantly. So they find the one most marginalized group within that group, and partly to separate, to divide and conquer too. Yes. How many times have we heard about recently of like LGBT groups being fractured when the LGB were trying to like abandon the trans folks and basically run away and say, and thinking that pick me is going to work. No, it's not going to work that way. The minute that you abandon your trans brothers and sisters is the minute that you surrender to the authoritarian regime and waiting for slaughter.
Yes. Yeah. Well, go ahead, Bob.
I think there's a couple things. One, like, I do think the average viewer listening to Trump just then understand that he does not seriously believe the Democratic Party has that position, and he was just shit talking and joking as he does. I do think that, but that does not mean he has not waged a war in his second term against trans people. I also think that, you know, I'm not known to defend the Democratic Party. Like, if the Democrats were for the forcing everyone to be transgender, I would actually probably be far more praise the Democrats for once for doing something cool and interesting. But I think the most disturbing thing is calling Congresswoman Omar a bitch. Like, his just a hatred towards a black Muslim woman who has done a lot on, whether we're talking about Gaza, whether we're talking about humanitarian aid in general, whether we're talking about Medicare, Medicaid, healthcare. She's been a huge progressive advocate on so many issues. But the way he's talking to her, That to me is the real scary thing in the story is contempt for her.
It's almost like in his life he has somehow been offended by a Muslim person, and therefore he wants to use his power of his office to take revenge on every Muslim that he ever see. I mean, he has been sending troops to Minneapolis specifically to target Somali refugees. He removed protection of said refugees, and now basically he is trying to get rid of people who don't think or look like him.
I don't think he's the only one that thinks like
that.
You know, ever since 9/11, there's been a group of people in this country always looking to try and go after Muslims, Muslim Americans specifically. Like there was a time where we had elected leaders who were trying to defend waterboarding. Like, oh, you know, these Muslims might know about like a bomb somewhere, and I'm like, we didn't talk about this sort of stuff when the people that were committing acts of terror were white men, like the Oklahoma City bombing. No one tried to waterboard him. You know, it's very clear. Like, Trump is a man of his times, quite frankly, a time of the past, I might also add. And just the other thing with that video watching, he is a shadow of his former self. He does not look healthy.
He looks melting. He looks like he's melting.
He was a different man in 2015. Well, he was a terrible man, but he was a much healthier man in 2015.
Well, one has to question his cognition. You know, just as many people question Joe Biden, I think he needs to be reevaluated, but totally transparent. And if he's not up to the task, they need to look for other options to represent our community.
Harry, how could you admit that his skin looked so transparent in that video?
I mean,
Cheetah-licious?
I'm not entirely sure.
Cheetah-licious.
I'm not entirely sure I'm comforted by the thoughts of President J.D. Vance either.
I know.
Let's be fair. But there's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.